Good evening. Welcome back to the Weekly Word Outdoor Adventures. We're just off the Basin Branch Horse Trail at the base of Starr Mountain over on the east side, I guess it would be. Wanted to show you something here today. Hundreds of people ride just right by here each year, maybe thousands, and very few people see these old home places. You gotta kind of know what you're looking for. One of the dead giveaways, but not always, is when you see these yucca plants. That's the first thing that got my attention here. One day I was down on the trail and I looked up here and I saw these yucca plants. For some reason, the settlers, they seem to always plant yucca plants. And then along about end of March, 1st of April or so, you'll come up here and their daffodils will still be blooming around their old home places. You give it away. But if you see the yucca plants from a distance, sometimes you go check them out and you verify, yeah, there was a home place there. And as I walked on up here, if you want to follow me, as you can see, the yucca plants were actually growing on top of a nice rock wall that somebody's 100 years ago or so has really done some work and made them a little rock wall. And behind the rock wall, it looks like was probably a nice little manicured lawn, and I can imagine an old cabin there and maybe even a front porch on it, and people raising their families. Come right on around and I'll show you. Keep walking around and here's more evidence. See, that's rock pile there. That would have been the chimney. It's all collapsed in upon the firebox and everything. But I'm sure they had cultivated little fields and people lived back here. And as I prowled around, I actually saw some old pieces of pots and rims off of wagon wheels and things like this here. A leg off an old Franklin stove had an F on it. Looked it up on the internet, figured out what it was. It was an old wood stove they had in here. And of course, when anybody selected a home site back then, they had to find a good, close proximity to their source of water. So let's walk on around behind here. Watch your step on the bus here. Here would have been their spring. I bet you could still dig it out and get the water, because you just go a few feet down here and it's running again, but that would have been their water source. Now look at these old rocks sitting right here. I see this and I think wonder how many times they sit on this old rock here over the years. Come down here by the spring where it's been cool. There's actually, I've counted about 5 or 6 of these old home places along this trail on either side as you go down through the trail. You get to thinking, well, whole families were probably raised here, maybe more than one generation, and this was kind of their world back here in these hollers back in that day. And you think the days were long, and to them it would have seemed like life was long. And now it's gone. They're all gone. It's just barely a trace that there was ever anybody here. The forest just does what the forest does and reclaims everything. It's not any different for you and I. You know, the older we get, you may be young now and think that life is really long, but you'll reach a point and it won't be long, and you'll realize that you've got less days in front of you than you've got behind you, and you'll say, man, it went fast. Life sure is short. And that's exactly what the Bible says over in the book of James. It says, life is but a vapor that appears for a little while and fadeth away. I mean, that's this life down here. It's just as fickle as the morning fog that hangs over the creek bottoms and the sun comes up and melts it away. But the good news is that this life, this physical life down here, is simply a blip on the radar screen of eternity, and eternity is forever. And this blip that we call life down here is that spot that we get to make our own choice where we want to spend the rest of eternity. And that's entirely up to you. I wish I could choose for you, but all I can do is urge you to place your trust in Jesus Christ and know where you're going to spend eternity, not because of you, but because of who Jesus is and what he did for you on Calvary's cross. See you next week on the Weekly Word. We'll find some other adventure.